I never doubted true love. Yet true love is always fleeting and ever-changing. When they were young, the boy's fondness for her was sincere and passionate. Her family of origin was terrible. She was bullied by others, and he was the only one who would stand up for her. She once said, "I don't have a phone." So that he could stay in touch with her, he went out to work part-time to earn money and buy her one. Amid her parents' endless arguments, it was his message after message that kept her company through those unbearably long nights. Because he protected her, he was beaten black and blue by the school thugs. Yet every time he saw her, he still smiled and said, "It doesn't hurt." At that moment, the love in the girl's heart could no longer be contained. Witnessed by the setting sun, the blush on the boy's face was more moving than any flowery words of love. From dating to marriage, they accompanied each other for a full 13 years. But somehow, without anyone noticing, the vows they once made quietly began to rust. Arguments, emotional cold violence, PUA, and even infidelity. He heartlessly betrayed her and even stole her information, leaving her burdened with usurious loans. In order to repay the debt, she worked 12 hours every day, never bought cosmetics, and wouldn't even bear to throw away clothes when they were torn. Yet in return, all she got was his disgust and mockery. In his mouth, she became a joyless, yellow-faced woman. The light that had once illuminated his entire youth now, in his eyes, had become nothing but a prison that bound her. But even withered flowers have a day when they bloom again. Na-hee-soo eventually met the rose that belonged to her, and finally learned what it meant to love herself. The story begins with the meeting of the two of them, which took place in a small flower shop. In order to repay her debts, Hye-soo was juggling several jobs at once. Seeing the schedule she had posted on the wall, opening the flower shop during the day on weekdays, carrying plates at a barbecue restaurant in the afternoon, and working the front desk at a motel on weekends, her flower shop coworker Hwa-jung was dumbfounded. In her view, this simply wasn't a workload a human could handle. But what she didn't know was that Hye-soo had been living like this for 13 years. When she was still very young, without any help from her parents, she married Kang Min-cheol. Later, in order to start a business, Kang Min-cheol took out usurious loans in her name. Faced with the man's desperate pleas, Hye-soo chose to forgive him. At first, she didn't even feel especially distressed. Instead, her heart was full of hope, believing that as long as the two of them worked hard together, one day they would be able to pay off the debt. It was just that, occasionally, emotions would suddenly surge up, making her want to cry her heart out, because compared to the speed at which they repaid the money, Kang Min-cheol's love for her disappeared much faster. And it was at this moment that the flower shop welcomed its first customer of the day. Hwa-jung whispered to her that this was the handsome guy who came every day to buy roses. Since no one knew his name, the part-timers all called him Rose. After saying that, she enthusiastically stepped forward. "Hello, are you here to buy flowers?" The man pulled down the collar of the garment covering his mouth but didn't answer. He only glanced at her expressionlessly, then shifted his gaze to the side, to Hye-soo, who was trimming bouquets. He lightly tapped the counter twice with his slender fingers. Hye-soo looked up in confusion, and the man's low voice sounded by her ear. "I want to place an order. You help me place it." Although she didn't know why he insisted that she take the order, as a shop assistant, Hye-soo had no reason to refuse. In her eyes, this wasn't any handsome guy who buys roses every day, just a customer with slightly odd behavior. Hye-soo asked him if he wanted to buy roses. Hearing this, Rose curved his lips into a smile. "I'm very happy. I didn't expect you to still remember me." Hye-soo didn't know how to respond for a moment, and could only silently turn around and continue trimming the flowers for the customer. From the very first glance at this man, Hye-soo felt that he was like the protagonist in a movie, standing at the center of the crowd, living a life that belonged only to himself. And when she looked at herself, she was nothing more than a dull, unnoticed supporting character in the story. Perhaps it was precisely this stark contrast that made her, who had always been indifferent to the world outside of work, leave an especially deep impression of the man before her. After the man left, Hwa-jung excitedly sidled up to her. "You saw that, right? He insisted on having you take his order, and he only comes when you're on shift." However, the constantly busy Hye-soo hadn't truly noticed this person called Rose until today. It was only from Hwa-jung that she learned the other party had been coming to buy flowers for several months already. "Anyway, from what I see, that man more or less has some interest in you, sis." Hye-soo could only shake her head helplessly. "He looks at least 10 years younger than me. How could a young guy possibly like an old auntie?" Hwa-jung pressed on relentlessly. "Sis, you don't know, older woman, younger man relationships are popular now. Maybe he really is interested in you. Besides, sis, you're obviously very pretty. But to Hae-soo, such praise sounded like sweet words made up to comfort a pitiful auntie. Not only did she feel no joy at all, she instead felt even more embarrassed. After all, she couldn't even obtain the love of the man at home, yet she was hearing such words from someone else. So when Hwa-jung still wanted to play matchmaker, Hae-soo simply told her directly that she already had a man. When she returned home in the evening, Kang Min-chul, as usual, ordered her around to serve tea and water. He walked toward the bathroom while taking off his clothes, leaving only Hae-soo squatting on the floor, picking up the dirty clothes scattered everywhere one by one. By the time he finished showering and came out, Hae-soo was already exhausted and half asleep. Looking at his wife's smooth, bare back, Kang Min-chul coughed lightly a couple of times, then reached out and began to grope her body. She clearly never did any skincare, and clearly wore sloppy, middle-aged woman-style clothes every day. Yet he had to admit that Hae-soo's figure was still as good as it used to be. However, no matter how he teased her, the woman's body was like a block of wood with no reaction at all. This made Kang Min-chul extremely dissatisfied. "You're not a blow-up doll, can't you at least moan a bit and have some reaction?" Hae-soo only said that she was a little tired today. Hearing this, his anger flared up immediately. "Do you think you're the only one working? You're just doing a few part-time jobs and you start putting on airs? Forget it. What can I even expect from a woman as cold and boring as you?" But just as his curses continued non-stop, Hae-soo instead closed her eyes in peace. Every morning at 6 o'clock, Hae-soo would get up on time. The flower shop didn't open until 8, but in order to make breakfast for Kang Min-chul, even getting up at 6 still left her pressed for time. Because he couldn't eat without soup no matter how rushed she was, she would insist on boiling a bowl of fresh soup every morning. As a result, the person who actually did the cooking often went to work on an empty stomach. At exactly 8 in the morning, Hae-soo arrived at the flower shop on time and changed into her work clothes. Her stomach growled non-stop, but she could only endure it until noon. When today's first customer pushed the door open and that familiar low voice rang out, Hae-soo looked up in surprise, and sure enough, it was that man again. Looking more closely, Rose was not only good-looking, but his voice was also excessively pleasant. For some reason, whenever she heard him speak in that low voice, Hae-soo always felt a slight itch in her ears. But just as she handed him the receipt, her stomach made an ill-timed gurgle. The man seemed to hear nothing at all, only quietly reaching out to take the receipt. Hae-soo sneakily glanced at him in embarrassment. Looks like he didn't hear it, right? Little did she know that Rose had already sent a text message, having someone deliver a sandwich immediately. After she finished wrapping the bouquet and the man left with the flowers, Hae-soo then noticed in surprise that there was an extra sandwich on the counter. Without much thought, she immediately chased after him. "You forgot your sandwich." Who would have thought that Rose would calmly say, "That's a gift for you. Take it." Hearing this, Hae-soo felt at a loss and hurriedly reached out to grab him. "No, I can't accept it." Rose smiled at that. "My God, is it because there's nothing to drink with it?" As he spoke, he handed over the coffee he was holding as well. "I've only taken one sip. It's not poisoned. Please accept it." Faced with the man's earnest and open gaze, Hae-soo was puzzled, yet found it hard to refuse again. Back in the shop, Hwa-jung spotted the breakfast in her hands at once. "He did that on purpose, leaving it for you to eat. If that's not interesting you, then what is it?" But looking at her own reflection in the display window, a haggard, bare-faced woman with pain relief patches stuck to her body, she only felt that his gesture, compared to interest, was more like simple pity. After all, with her stomach growling so loudly early in the morning, anyone would probably feel a bit of sympathy. It would be hard to pretend not to notice. But if he really is interested in me, then I must draw a clear line immediately. Realizing that she was actually letting her thoughts run wild, Hae-soo secretly scolded herself. It seemed work was truly boring to the extreme, for her to start having such unrealistic fantasies. At this moment, Hwa-jung asked again, "Then what are you gonna do, sis? Didn't you say you have a boyfriend? Are you going to reject Rose, or dump your boyfriend and switch to Rose?" Hae-soo was silent for a moment before slowly correcting her. "Not a boyfriend. A husband." Hearing this, Hwa-jung immediately apologized. "I'm sorry, I didn't know you were already married." But on Hae-soo's face, an unmistakable trace of sorrow surfaced. Because of the debt, she and Kang Min-chul had actually divorced long ago. It was just that, in order not to lose face, Kang Min-chul never allowed her to call him husband in public. At the same time, on the other side, Kang Min-chul, who had just arrived at the company, was in high spirits thanks to the special attention from his co-worker Ari. Seeing the cute sticker pasted on the paper cup, he couldn't help but smile. During the lunch break, a group of middle-aged men gathered together, discussing the pretty women in the company. Everyone felt that Ari was clearly interested in the new guy. "And you're single, right?" Kang Min-cheol put on an incredulous expression and nodded. Egged on by his colleagues, he decided to give it a try. That evening, when he got home, Hee-soo asked him how the new job was. He only threw back an impatient tone at her. And in her heart, only one thought remained. As long as they quickly paid off the debt, the two of them could remarry. Hearing this, Kang Min-cheol sneered. "Of course we'll remarry once the debt is paid. Nah, Hee-soo, without me, how could you possibly survive? But don't push too hard either. If a man is nagged too much by a woman, he'll definitely want to run away." As he said this, he suddenly hugged her from behind. "Give me some pocket money. I want to buy perfume," Kang Min-cheol explained. "Now that I'm working outside, everyone dresses neatly. Even those old guys wear perfume." But when she heard that the perfume would cost 200,000, she couldn't help hesitating. Kang Min-cheol immediately became unhappy. "At my age, do you expect me to use cheap stuff for kids? Forget it. If you don't want to give it, then don't." What he didn't know was that, just for this job of his, she had already spent a large sum this month on suits and leather shoes alone. No matter how much she pinched pennies, this month's income and expenses were still in the red. So Hee-soo decided to further cut down on her sleep and take on another night shift at a convenience store. Although she felt reluctant, she still squeezed 200,000 out of her advanced wages to buy him the perfume. Then she closed the door of the house and went to work at the barbecue restaurant. On the other side, upon learning that Beom Tae-ha suddenly wanted to treat him to a meal, Ju Dong-uk could hardly believe it. "Aren't you the one who hates noisy places the most? Someone who would rather die than go to cheap restaurants? Actually taking the initiative to eat barbecue? And you've been in an especially good mood lately too." At the same time, Hee-soo, busy at the barbecue restaurant, overheard customers chatting. As long as the wife is virtuous and kind, a man will naturally work hard to earn money and support the family. These words involuntarily plunged her into deep thought. Once upon a time, Kang Min-cheol had also been gentle and considerate toward her. Could it be that because I'm not virtuous enough, not gentle enough, I destroyed our relationship? The boss's scolding voice snapped her out of her daze. "Hee-soo, what are you doing? Hurry up and attend to the customers." She hurriedly came back to herself and stepped forward, but froze the moment she raised her head. The familiar figure at the door was Rose. She hadn't expected to run into him here again. It looked like he had come to eat with friends. Perhaps because of Hwa-jung's earlier teasing, the moment she saw Rose, she felt a little unnatural. Young, handsome guys falling for older aunties. She had never thought in that direction, nor had she ever expected anyone's special concern. But the moment she thought of those words, Hee-soo felt ashamed and didn't even dare to look at him directly. Hearing the conversation between Rose and the girl beside him, she secretly guessed, "Is that his girlfriend? They really look well matched." The flowers he bought before were probably for her too. At the same time, she reproached herself inwardly. Having worked with young people for so long, she had actually forgotten what her own position was. Noticing that Beom Tae-ha kept looking in a certain direction, Hee-ji couldn't help asking, "Beom Tae-ha, do you know that server auntie? You've been looking at her the whole time." The next second, Beom Tae-ha smiled and turned back. "Yeah, donor." Then he asked in return, "Was I that obvious?" Hee-ji felt a bit awkward. She had only been suspicious, but hadn't expected to be proven right. On the other hand, after Hee-soo returned home, she only then discovered that the clothes she wore today had torn a hole. She felt it would be too wasteful to throw them away directly and planned to sew them up and wear them for a few more years. Seeing that she still wouldn't go to sleep, Kang Min-cheol simply snatched the clothes from her hands. Looking at that tear, he revealed a mocking smile. "What is this? Are you trying to provoke me so I'll buy you new clothes, Hee-soo? Men would never like a shabby woman like you. You never dress up, never put on makeup, and you wear underwear that's been washed until it's all loose and saggy. You look just like an old auntie. Really disgusting." These words instantly made Hee-soo recall those humiliating and embarrassing memories. With a bitter expression, she softly begged him to give the clothes back to her. Seeing her like this, Kang Min-cheol shrugged. "I don't think I said anything too excessive, did I?" Then he pulled her into his arms again, as if comforting her. "You don't know how to act cute, and you don't understand men. But even so, I'll still live my life together with you. After all, you only have me, right?" Hee-soo numbly nodded. Even if it was just such an ordinary and difficult life, she had always believed that it was precisely because she had Kang Min-cheol that she could keep going. Early the next morning, the weather forecast said it would rain today. Hae-soo took out the two umbrellas at home from the cabinet to check them. One of them was already broken but could still barely be used. So she kept the intact one for Kang Min-cheol to take to work. What she didn't know, however, was that the person she missed so dearly was at that very moment hitting it off with a young female colleague at his company. After the flower shop opened, Rose appeared right on time as usual. The thought of facing him made Hae-soo feel awkward. So before he entered, she pretended she needed to go to the back to tend the flowers and quietly avoided him. Seeing this scene as soon as he walked in, Byum Tae-ha couldn't help but frown deeply and irritably tug at his collar. Although the person attending to him was Hwa Jung, his gaze never truly landed there from beginning to end. After the flower shop closed, Hae-soo secretly felt relieved. Thank goodness I didn't run into him today. However, she also understood that deliberately avoiding him like today was not a long-term solution. She decided that starting tomorrow, she would stop doing this. After all, no matter how awkward something is, it will gradually fade after a few days. Yet just as she opened her umbrella and prepared to go to work at the convenience store, she unfortunately discovered that the old umbrella that had barely held up in the morning was now completely broken. Although the distance from here to the convenience store wasn't far, in such a torrential rain she had no way to dash through it. If I call Min-cheol, he'll definitely find me annoying again. She stood there helplessly. Just as she was hesitating, a large umbrella silently extended over. Hae-soo looked up and saw the tall, inexplicably reassuring figure of Rose. After a moment of silence, he asked in a low voice, "Do you live nearby?" Hae-soo felt a bit awkward and tightened the strap on her shoulder. "No need, I live very far away. You should go first." After saying that, she subconsciously moved 2 steps to the side. Who would have thought that Rose would also move a little closer to her? "I heard it will be heavy rain until tomorrow. Let's walk together. One umbrella is enough." Hae-soo felt as if heaven itself were playing tricks on her. Every coincidence was so precise that she had no way to avoid this man. And this is his kindness. If I keep refusing, wouldn't that make me seem strange instead? So even though she still felt somewhat uncomfortable, she accepted this kindness. On the way home, Rose surprisingly didn't say a single word. However, thanks to the noise of the heavy rain hitting the umbrella, the atmosphere under the shared umbrella was not as awkward as she had imagined. Perhaps because the rain was too heavy, a man who usually walked briskly had actually slowed his pace. Hae-soo suddenly thought of Kang Min-cheol. When she walked with him, she was often left far behind. She guessed that perhaps Rose habitually slowed down in order to take care of others. Feeling a little guilty, she asked, "If your girlfriend knew you were holding an umbrella for a strange woman, she probably wouldn't be happy, right?" Rose let out a soft laugh. "Who said I have a girlfriend?" Hae-soo was taken aback. "I thought the girl I saw with you at the barbecue place last time, that wasn't my girlfriend, just an ordinary friend." Realizing she had misunderstood, she awkwardly turned her face away. Thinking she didn't believe him, Rose moved a little closer. "What I said is true. Please, believe me." Just then, a car drove by, honking its horn. Rose grabbed Hae-soo in one motion, pulled her into his arms, and blocked the rainwater splashed up by the tires. In that instant, she clearly felt the man's broad chest closing in, and Hae-soo's heartbeat involuntarily slowed by a beat. "I'm sorry, the car was going too fast. I was afraid you'd get hurt." Although Hae-soo said it was fine, inside she was startled by Rose's action. Suddenly it felt like something was pressing up against her, making her freeze on the spot, lower her head and dare not look directly at the man in front of her. Unexpectedly, Rose deliberately teased her. "Big, right?" Hae-soo opened her mouth, not knowing how to respond for a moment. "I'm big, right?" I blocked all the splashing water. The moment she realized her mind had gone in the wrong direction, Hae-soo lowered her head in embarrassment. Seeing that the other side of Rose's coat was already soaked by the rain, while her own clothes hadn't gotten wet at all, she still couldn't help but ask, "Why are you being so kind to me?" Rose chuckled softly. "I didn't expect my intention to be discovered. I just want to get to know you." Hae-soo instinctively refused. "No, you're so heartless. Then can I know why it's not allowed? You're still young, you should be very popular with girls. Why would you want to get to know an auntie?" As they spoke, the two of them had already arrived at Hae-soo's front door. Before parting, Rose asked her, "So from now on, are we going to keep pretending we don't know each other?" Hae-soo replied calmly, "Yes, let's continue pretending we don't know each other. I understand. I'll listen to you." After saying that, he turned around and disappeared into the rainy night. Hae-soo hadn't expected Rose to be so compliant toward her. She could only watch his departing back, while a bone-chattering, piercing pain lingered for a long time without dissipating. She didn't know why Rose would take an interest in someone like her. Perhaps it was just because he was young and full of curiosity. But when she opened the door to her home, she discovered that the umbrella she had specially left for Minkael hadn't been taken at all. Recalling that customer at the barbecue restaurant who spoke of his expectations for his wife, Hae-soo decided to go to Kang Min-chul's company to pick him up, thinking he should be very happy, right? However, she waited at the building entrance for a long time and still didn't see Kang Min-chul. When she called him, all that remained was the cold, mechanical message. The user is powered off. Hae-soo comforted herself in her heart. Maybe we just missed each other on the way. And I didn't arrange it in advance before coming. I should just go home first. But just as she was about to turn around and leave, she saw Kang Min-chul walking out under a shared umbrella with another woman. Under the pouring rain, Hae-soo froze in place. Gari frowned. Why is this person staring at us? Kang Min-chul immediately exclaimed, "She's a relative from my family. She came to pick me up because it's raining." After saying that, he took the initiative to slip under Hae-soo's umbrella and sent Ari away. After that, he immediately changed his expression and harshly questioned Hae-soo about why she had come to the company on her own initiative. But at this moment, all Hae-soo wanted to know was who that woman just now was. Seeing that he couldn't gloss over it anymore, Kang Min-chul snatched the umbrella away and said impatiently, "I already told you, she's my colleague. Someone like you with no friends wouldn't understand. Whenever a man and a woman are together, you just think of that kind of relationship, don't you? Enough already, na Hae-soo. Stop embarrassing yourself like this." Hae-soo was scolded into silence. In her daze, that low, slow voice seemed to echo by her ear once again. So it turned out that she was once again making a fuss over some trivial matter. The next day, Hae-soo went to work at the flower shop as usual. After a busy morning, Hwa-jung went crazy. "Not seeing Rose's handsome face today makes me lose all motivation to work." Yet just before closing time, the Rose who had been late for a long time still walked in with a cold expression. Watching the man stride straight toward her, Hae-soo, who had been organizing the account book, immediately stood up and asked, "Would you like to place an order?" But as if taking revenge for her heartlessness last night, the usually gentle Rose directly ignored her greeting and walked past her with a stiff face. From that day on, Rose and Hae-soo deliberately maintained a distance between them. He still came to the flower shop every day to order flowers, but the person attending to him changed from Hae-soo to Hwa-jung. However, Hae-soo instead felt relieved about this, relieved that Rose did not harbor such deep feelings for her. Otherwise, once that heavy affection was abruptly cut off, the pain left behind would become a scar that could never be erased for a lifetime. This, she had long understood all too well. Ever since joining the new company, Kang Min-chul has been coming home later and later, and on weekends he often uses overtime as an excuse and simply doesn't come home at all. Taking advantage of brief breaks, Hae-soo sent him many messages, but they were like stones sinking into the sea, with no reply at all. Hearing someone call her, she immediately put away her phone and stepped forward to serve the customer. Meanwhile, on the other side, at the dining table, the newly appointed CEO was having a dinner gathering with the employees, and from time to time he made greasy remarks to the young female employees beside him. After several rounds of drinking, alcohol gradually took over his mind. Looking at the pretty waitress nearby with her curvy figure, the middle-aged CEO felt restless and distracted. During this time, he had also observed this woman. She worked diligently and didn't even know what luxury brands were. Urged on by alcohol, the CEO singled out Hae-soo and demanded that she drink a glass with him. Faced with the customer's unreasonable request, Hae-soo was extremely troubled. Seeing that he had lost face in front of his subordinates, the CEO immediately stood up in anger and berated Hae-soo, scolding her for having no sense of service at all. After being informed by other employees, the restaurant owner hurried out to apologize and even said they could provide some extra barbecue for free. Unexpectedly, the CEO rejected it outright. Saying that a mere waitress dared to be so rude and arrogant to him, he demanded that Hae-soo kneel down on the spot, otherwise he would not let the matter rest today. Hearing such an absurd demand, the restaurant owner immediately started arguing with him. Hae-soo knew very well how hard it was to run a business during an economic downturn. In order not to cause trouble for the owner, she clenched her teeth and accepted the customer's demand, knelt down, and sincerely apologized to him. After work, the owner was full of guilt. He told Hae-soo that there was no need to go that far. But Hae-soo knew that the CEO had many employees under him and often came to the restaurant for gatherings, and the owner was very understanding toward her and often advanced her salary. She didn't want the restaurant to suffer losses because of her. After hearing this, the owner felt a mix of emotions, only feeling that Haesu's life was too difficult. But what he didn't know was that Haesu had long been doing all kinds of jobs, and she had seen plenty of such situations. She had countless nights when she was so sad that she couldn't fall asleep. After a certain point, her heart was already covered in scars, and because of that, it had become hard as stone. After closing time, the owner originally wanted to take her home nearby, but then learned that she still had to go to the convenience store for the night shift and couldn't help but ask in confusion, Do you owe a lot of money?" As the words fell, images immediately appeared before Haesu's eyes of debt collectors barging into her home and causing trouble. Back then, weak and helpless, she could only curl up in Kang Minchel's arms, crying so hard she could barely catch her breath. Coming back to her senses, she numbly nodded and walked alone along the pitch-dark street. The sound of the night wind rattling the old doors made her jumpy, thinking the debt collectors had come again. But even so, she still held hopes for the future. At the same time, on the other side, the middle-aged CEO was humming a tune as he walked through an alley. Thinking about the authority he had shown off at the restaurant today, he planned to go find that woman again next week to strike up a conversation. But he didn't notice that a figure had already silently appeared behind him. Listening to the filthy words that kept spilling out of his mouth, Byum Tai-ha, who had endured for a long time, kicked him flying with one blow. Immediately after, before the CEO could get up, he was grabbed fiercely by the hair and lifted completely off the ground. The middle-aged CEO let out a pig-like scream, but Byum Tai-ha spoke coldly, "Hit at me." Suddenly given such an opportunity for revenge, the middle-aged CEO naturally wouldn't let it pass. Having trained in boxing, he threw a punch, and a clear wound immediately appeared on Byum Tai-ha's face. But feeling the blood seeping from the corner of his mouth, he curled his lips into a satisfied smile. However, things were not over yet. Looking at the man crawling on the ground like a wild dog, Byum Tai-ha beat him up again and warned him not to provoke people he shouldn't in the future. Meanwhile, inside the convenience store, Haesu was cleaning up the trash left by customers. The night shift work was not easy either, but when there were no customers, she could finally sit down and rest for a while. But just as she closed her eyes, she was startled awake by the sound of the door opening. She instinctively stood up to receive the customer, only to be surprised to find that the one who came in was actually Rose. Could there really be such a coincidence? Haesu didn't believe it in her heart. However, since they had already agreed to pretend not to know each other, she could only treat him as an ordinary customer. But when she saw the items he was about to check out, Haesu couldn't help but raise her head. Only then did she notice the bruises on Rose's face and his split lip. She felt a bit heartbroken. What kind of bad guy beat a kid into this state? Even though they had already agreed to act like strangers, kind-hearted Haesu couldn't bring herself to ignore an injured child. So she kindly reminded him, "This is useless. If you don't apply medicine, it might leave a scar." "What will you do then?" Hearing this, Rose remained silent. Haesu immediately felt a little awkward and thought she was being ridiculous. "We clearly agreed to be strangers, and here I am meddling again, unexpectedly." Rose's serious face softened all at once, and he smiled, leaning on the counter, lifting his eyes to look at her. "Then, what should I do? Please teach me." This strange yet obedient tone made Haesu feel very uncomfortable. She came out from behind the counter. "You're still young, so I won't bother with polite talk. With me." Hearing this, Byum Tai-ha was stunned for a moment. "I like it a lot." Then he took small steps and obediently followed behind her. The two went to the pharmacy to buy anti-inflammatory medicine. Then Byum Tai-ha said that he didn't know how to apply it himself. Haesu looked slightly helpless. "Forget it, I'll do it. It might hurt a bit, so bear with it." As soon as she finished speaking, she heard Rose suck in a sharp breath. "Does it hurt a lot?" "No, it's just a little itchy." "How old are you?" "I'm an adult." "That's exactly why I'm asking how old you are. You're already this grown, and you're still getting into fights outside?" Rose immediately denied it. "I didn't get into a fight." Haesu didn't believe him. "Then what's wrong with your face?" "It really wasn't my fault. It's just, my family situation has always been like this." Listening to Rose's unfortunate experience, Haesu couldn't help thinking of her own childhood, also struggling amid violence and poverty. In him, she saw her own shadow, and couldn't help feeling more sympathy for the boy in front of her. As if reading something from her eyes, Rose asked her, "Did your heart soften?" Haesu nodded. "Didn't you say that day that you wanted to know me?" "Now, let's just consider ourselves acquainted." Rose couldn't suppress his excitement. "Then, can I call you Nuna?" "No, call me Auntie." Although he didn't get his way, Rose was still very happy. But thinking of something, his expression dimmed a little because in his view, what Haesu was doing was nothing more than pitying him. Before leaving, Haesu added Rose's contact information and only then learned that his name was Beom Tai-ha. Looking at the messages and stickers he sent, Haesu comforted herself. Just getting to know each other, it should be fine, right? After that, she opened her chat with Kang Min-cheol again, only to find that there was still no reply. Thinking that he must be very tired trying to adapt to the new company, Haesu decided not to disturb him anymore. However, what she didn't know was that at this very moment, Kang Min-cheol was attending a company banquet. Seeing that Ari beside him was about to get drunk, he considerately switched the shoujo in her hand with beer. Ari shyly turned her head away, yet enjoyed this feeling of being taken care of. At the drinking table, everyone teased the single Kang Min-cheol, asking what type of woman he liked. Kang Min-cheol smiled. Of course I like young women who know how to act cute and dress up. Ari beside him couldn't help but have her heart race, because everything he described matched her traits exactly. After the drinking party ended, Ari, emboldened by the alcohol, confessed her feelings to Kang Min-cheol and invited him to her place to have a couple more drinks. Thus, in some room unknown to Haesu, Kang Min-cheol personally betrayed the vow he had once sworn. At 6 in the morning, Haesu returned home after finishing her night shift. Looking at the empty room, a trace of ominous unease flashed through her heart. After making who knows how many calls, Kang Min-cheol on the other end finally answered impatiently. Hearing Haesu's concern, he tried to cover his guilty conscience with anger, saying the gathering had run too late so he stayed out for the night, then coldly added that he was not a child and did not need her worrying about everything. After saying that, without waiting for Haesu to respond, he hung up directly. Listening to the beep-beep busy tone from the phone, Haesu instinctively felt uneasy. But under Kang Min-cheol's calm and casual explanation, she, completely in the dark, was like a fool, able only to persuade herself again and again. I'm overreacting again, right, please, nothing must happen. Meanwhile, at school, the usually low-key Beom Tai-ha suddenly stopped Ji-hoo, who came from an ordinary family. Ji-hoo was so nervous he did not know what to do because in his eyes, Beom Tai-ha and himself were people from completely different worlds. He thought this was another kind of campus extortion, but unexpectedly, Beom Tai-ha proposed exchanging shoes with him. You should know, the price of their shoes differed by nearly 100 times. Ji-hoo could not understand what he was thinking at all. But faced with Beom Tai-ha's smiling yet unyielding attitude, he simply did not dare say no. On the other side, seeing that he was actually wearing a pair of worn-out shoes, Hee-ji was incredulous. Recently, Beom Tai-ha seemed like a completely different person. Even the songs he listened to were inexplicable, with the lyrics repeating an entire line. I like it, really like it. I like Auntie so much. Yet he looked utterly absorbed, and even turned to ask Hee-ji, this song's pretty good, right? At the same time, inside the flower shop, Hwa-jung cautiously apologized to Haesu. I'm really sorry, Unni. Haesu froze for a moment. Hwa-jung hurriedly added, before, I thought Rosie's was interested in you, Unni. Seems it was just my misunderstanding. Lately, he's only been placing orders with me. Sigh, looking at it this way, it's like I made you misunderstand, so I've been feeling really sorry. For a moment, Haesu had nothing to say. She thought that, even though she and Rose already knew each other, there was no need to deliberately explain those things. Anyway, she seemed to be enjoying herself. So, she chose to remain silent. Just as Hwa-jung was still dwelling on it, Rose pushed the door open and walked in. Seeing the bandage on that handsome face, Hwa-jung was startled but still prepared herself to receive him. Unexpectedly, Beom Tai-ha walked straight toward Haesu. I'm here to buy flowers. That gentle tone washed over her. Haesu subconsciously asked, what kind do you want to buy? Beom Tai-ha curled the corner of his lips. We can be considered acquainted now, right? Hearing this, Haesu immediately stood up from her seat. Then, I'll help you wrap a bouquet of roses. However, while she was selecting the flowers, Beom Tai-ha was like a tag-along, following her wherever she went, not saying a word, just staring at her without blinking. The interaction between the two startled Hwa-jung. Could it be that she had really missed some crucial plot development? After Haesu finished up, Beom Tai-ha asked with an expectant look, what are you going to do after work today? Haesu looked helpless. Are you really asking to get scolded? Hearing that, Beom Tai-ha's eyes carried a smile. If it's you scolding me, then being scolded isn't so bad. Hae-soo did not want to continue this topic, so she said apologetically, I still have other work. I have to go to work, so I don't have time to keep you company. No, didn't I see you last time at the barbecue place? Yes, that's right. Just like that, the two chatted as they walked. I finally got to know you, but you're busy every day. Adults are busy by nature. After hearing that, Baeom Taeha sighed. That's why I hate becoming an adult. Hae-soo was a little surprised. Clearly there was still youthfulness on his face, yet he always acted very mature. Still, his height was indeed quite impressive. Baeom Taeha asked in confusion, why are you looking at me like that? Hae-soo asked, you're over 190 centimeters tall, right? Looks like you've done a lot of research on men's height. Hae-soo was silent for a few seconds. Because I lived with Min-cheol for 13 years, I was responsible for buying all his clothes and underwear. Hearing this, Baeom Taeha felt a bit jealous. That's really enviable. Hae-soo was taken aback. You're taller than Min-cheol. There's no need to be jealous, right? Baeom Taeha could only smile helplessly. What the? Hey, why are you laughing? Nothing. Can I take you to your workplace? To her own surprise, Hae-soo did not refuse. On the way, she noticed that the shoes Baeom Taeha was wearing were already very worn, so she asked curiously, where do you get the money to buy flowers every day? Wouldn't it be better to spend it on something else? Who knew Baeom Taeha would ask in return? There's no reason that just because you can't afford other things, you shouldn't even buy flowers, right? For some reason, this sentence struck Hae-soo deeply. Her originally gray world was, in an instant, dyed with color. She always wrapped bouquets for others, yet had never thought of giving one of the flowers to herself. Thinking that she had just criticized him using a shabby standard, she immediately felt ashamed. You're right. Thank you for bringing me here today. Baeom Taeha pondered for a moment, then smiled and handed her the rose in his hand. If you really want to thank me, then from now on, let's meet often. Meanwhile, on the other side, seeing that Kang Min-cheol and Ari seemed to be getting along well, a colleague, both envious and jealous, deliberately belittled her in front of him. She looks kind of aloof, but she's really just so-so. Once women get older, they become vulgar. Listening to this unpleasant commentary by his ear, Kang Min-cheol grew irritated. I don't know why you're chattering to yourself here, but I don't find it interesting at all. So shut up, understand? Who knew that even he himself did not expect that these words happened to be overheard by Ari as she passed by. When he returned to the office, Ari suddenly threw herself into his arms. She had originally been worried. They all said that once a man got a woman's body, he would quickly grow tired of her. But now she was sure Kang Min-cheol was the special one. She secretly vowed in her heart, a man like this she would definitely hold on to tightly. After work, the two were enjoying a dinner date. And in the rented room, the steamed ribs Hae-soo had specially prepared before her night shift were destined to go untouched that night. Working the front desk shift at the motel, Hae-soo looked at the messages and stickers Baeom Taeha had sent on her phone and could not help but let out a soft laugh. That sense of youthful awkwardness, tender yet filled with the romance of youth. But the next second, a drunken man staggered into the motel, stuffed his ID card into her hand as if it were a bank card, and shouted about calling a technician. Just as Hae-soo felt at a loss, a burly man stepped in to resolve the situation for her, handing over a black card and telling her to reserve all the vacant rooms for him. Hae-soo was so surprised she thought she had misheard. What she did not know was that all of this was Baeom Taeha's arrangement. He looked at the message sent by his subordinate, silently followed the troublemaking drunk, and gave him a thorough beating. Because all the empty rooms were filled at once, the motel owner was in a great mood and let Hae-soo get off work early. Rarely having some free time, she could not help but feel a little happiness. Even the once pitch-dark and frightening night road became especially warm that evening. But when she returned home, looking at the ribs that had already gone cold, her mood cooled little by little. What she had not yet realized was that all of this was a harbinger of future misfortune. Late at night, while Hae-soo was cooking in the kitchen, her phone suddenly vibrated. Baeom Taeha sent a message. I heard it'll be colder than usual tomorrow, so wear more clothes. Attached image, offering dried anchovies. 10 minutes later, the phone vibrated again. Don't push yourself too hard at work. Attached image, take a break before continuing. They were clearly just childish emojis, yet they carried the warmth of youth. The gloom that had been pent up in her heart was unexpectedly, gently washed away. Almost at the same time, on the other side, Baeom Taeha was also hugging his phone and grinning foolishly. Although he hadn't received a reply from Hae-soo, he knew very well that she must have seen it. The next morning, watching Hae-soo's back as she made breakfast in the rental room, Kang Min-chul suddenly hugged her from behind and unusually said a few pleasant words. It wasn't because of guilt after cheating, but simply because he felt that today's Hae-soo looked especially pitiful. No matter what he did outside, this woman would always silently stay by his side. The long-lost intimacy made Hae-soo feel uncomfortable all over. She even thought he wanted money again to buy something. But Kang Min-chul said, "Thank you for the money you gave me to buy perfume. But seeing how hard you work to earn money every day, I really couldn't bear to spend it. It's okay, go buy it." Getting the answer he wanted from her, Kang Min-chul coldly curled the corner of his mouth. Sure enough, as long as it was for him, everything was okay. Obedient, boring, yet overly kind Na Hae-soo. Thinking of this, he thrust his hand into her clothes while at the same time biting at the back of her neck. She didn't know how to act cute, nor did she know how to resist. But whenever it was like this, her helpless, blushing to burning red expression would make Kang Min-chul feel that it was very fun. Finally, only after Hae-soo begged him repeatedly did he let go and allow her to go to work. To him, Na Hae-soo was like a flower anyone could pluck. Yes, it was beautiful but dull. Yet as long as he wanted, he could reach out and pick it at any time, tasting it at will. After Hae-soo went out, Kang Min-chul idly chatted with Ari. Suddenly, he remembered that he still needed to buy perfume. Originally, he had planned to go with Hae-soo, but thinking about how every time they went shopping, Hae-soo was completely clueless about any luxury brands, shrinking back timidly like a country bumpkin. His little bit of patience was instantly worn away. Annoyed, he simply sent a message to ask Ari to go shopping with him. A day passed, and following Baeum Taeha's instructions, his subordinates had already secretly taken photos of Kang Min-chul and Ari on a date. But he knew very well that with just these, it still wasn't enough to make Hae-soo completely give up. At the same time, Hae-soo, who was nodding off at work, was awakened by her phone ringing. Seeing the message from Baeum Taeha, "After work, can we meet?" She worried that this kid had gotten into some kind of trouble again, so she replied, telling him to wait for her at the intersection on the way to the convenience store. As a result, as soon as she came out of the motel, she saw Baeum Taeha already standing at the entrance. Hae-soo was a little surprised. "You look a bit different today, you feel especially like an adult." Baeum Taeha's tone was calmer than usual. "Really? I can only see you for a little while. Do you still have to go to work later?" "It's fine. This alley is very dark at night. I'll walk you to the convenience store." At this level, adults wouldn't be afraid. Hearing this, Baeum Taeha just smiled and turned his head slightly away. "But I would be." Hae-soo naturally didn't believe him. "You're so tall, how could you be afraid?" Baeum Taeha let out an incredulous low laugh. "Then I'll walk behind you, like this." Hae-soo felt a bit helpless with this kid. "No need, just behave and walk beside me." Baeum Taeha was always obedient toward Hae-soo. Just as he was about to take a step, he suddenly noticed the mark on her neck. Even though he had been feeling jealous just a second ago, the next second, he suddenly walked behind her and placed both hands on her shoulders. Hae-soo was startled. "What's wrong?" Baeum Taeha's fingertips lightly touched the side of her neck as he said in a low voice, "Here, it looks like you were bitten by a mosquito. But it's winter, and it doesn't even itch." Halfway through her sentence, Hae-soo seemed to realize something, and her small face instantly turned completely red. She hurriedly raised her hand to cover her neck and added guiltily, "Yeah, it was probably a mosquito bite." Hearing this, Baeum Taeha's tone returned to calm. "I knew it, that's what I thought." He pointed at her neck. "I'll help you put a bandage on it." Hae-soo didn't refuse, and even secretly let out a sigh of relief. Thankfully, this kid was simple-minded. If someone else had seen it, she would have been so embarrassed she'd want to crawl into a crack in the ground. However, when Baeum Taeha's thumb lightly brushed across her skin, Hae-soo couldn't help but tremble slightly, a hint of shyness welling up in her heart. At that moment, Baeum Taeha suddenly asked, "Why haven't you replied to my messages these days?" Hae-soo froze, both confused and a little uneasy. "Was there something I absolutely had to reply to? Yesterday I felt really unwell. The place where I was hit kept burning with pain." Hae-soo pretended to be angry. "Then why did you only put on a bandage and not apply any ointment?" Baeum Taeha chuckled softly. "Exactly. You didn't reply to me, and that made me feel really bad." That sentence was like a thin needle, piercing into Hae-soo's heart. Because she had no friends and never contacted anyone, this was the first time she had received that kind of nagging message one after another, and she only felt at a loss. Strictly speaking, she didn't even know that messages were something that needed to be replied to. But the moment she heard Baeum Taiha say he was very sad, Hae-soo suddenly understood. So that feeling she had every time Kang Min-cheol didn't reply to her was called sadness. Thinking of this, she raised her eyes to look at Baeum Taiha, her gaze filled with apology. "I'm sorry, because I've hardly ever messaged with other people. I really didn't know how to reply to you. Being friends with someone my age must really be boring, right?" As the words fell, she lowered her head in shame. Sensing her low mood, Baeum Taiha reached out and pulled up her collar, covering the ugly bandage, and said in a serious, calm tone, "You don't need to feel sorry. It was me who wanted to contact you, so I freely sent those messages on my own initiative. Accepting someone else's one-sided feelings never gives you a reason to demand responsibility from them, so you don't need to apologize, and you don't need to force yourself to do things you don't want to do just because you're afraid of hurting someone. In short, you can do whatever you want, as long as it's your own will." At that moment, Hae-soo didn't know that these words would leave a deep imprint in her mind, like a seal. After getting off work and returning home, Hae-soo thought back and forth all day, and suddenly one thing became exceptionally clear in her heart. She, who had always been frugal to the extreme, actually walked into a flower shop and bought a rose as a gift for herself. She hadn't expected that just a single rose could add a bit of vitality to her shabby home. Hae-soo picked up her phone and took a photo of the flower. She originally wanted to share this small bit of beauty with Baeum Taiha, but being sensitive by nature, she started to hesitate again. Would doing this be too casual? But thinking of what Baeum Taiha had said, she finally pressed the send button. At the same time, Kang Min-cheol also got off work and returned home. He had originally only planned to casually change clothes and then go on a date with Ari, but when he saw that vivid red rose on the table at a glance, he froze on the spot. Hae-soo felt a little nervous and explained softly, "I know that given our situation, we shouldn't be buying flowers, so I only bought one, just one." However, the very next second, Kang Min-cheol's brain suddenly heated up. He strode quickly to Hae-soo and roughly, unreasonably pressed her down onto the floor. He had originally planned to fool around with another woman tonight, but upon seeing this, now Hae-soo, who neither knew how to act cute nor understood any techniques, actually coming home holding a flower like a real woman, Kang Min-cheol only felt his whole body grow hot, his head as if set on fire, desperately and without restraint taking everything from her. Perhaps because it had been too long since he had touched Hae-soo, Kang Min-cheol was impatient like a newlywed boy. But at that moment, Hae-soo suddenly reminded him, "Today is a dangerous period." As soon as the words fell, an inexplicable rage exploded in his head. He grabbed Hae-soo by the neck and ground his teeth. "So, what if we do it? You can't even get pregnant anyway, can you?" Those words viciously pierced Hae-soo's heart. Kang Min-cheol also completely lost interest in continuing. He casually flung her aside, turned around, left the house, and rushed off to meet Ari, leaving Hae-soo alone, lying in despair in the dim rental room. On the other side, looking at the photos sent by Hae-soo, the corners of Baeum Taiha's mouth unconsciously curved upward. At this moment, two girls walked over. Ever since their last meeting at the barbecue restaurant, they never expected to run into each other again here, and they felt it was an extremely coincidental stroke of fate. But in Baeum Taiha's view, there were never that many coincidences in this world. The ending of the story had already been written from the very beginning, and this would be a story that made people shed tears. At the same time, Hae-soo was picking up Kang Min-cheol's dirty clothes, preparing to wash them. But the next second, when she saw the lipstick mark on the clothes, that heart which was already shattered seemed to be thrown completely into the abyss. At this moment on the other side, having just met Ari, Kang Min-cheol impatiently pressed her down inside the car. The impulses he had suppressed before made him even more unrestrained than usual tonight. And Hae-soo, who was still busy at the restaurant, was unsettled because of that trace of lipstick on the clothes. As a result, without paying attention, she dropped a cup onto the floor. She tried hard to comfort herself. Maybe someone accidentally bumped into Min-cheol, or maybe it was just some unavoidable misunderstanding. But this time, no matter how she forced herself, she could no longer completely convince herself. That heart, which had already been on the verge of collapse, had begun to let out sobbing sounds, yet the near suffocating numbness left her unable to shed even a single tear. In the past, as long as she kept herself busy with work, she could push those sad matters back into the depths of her heart. Only today, those painful memories she had deliberately buried surfaced one by one. Whenever Hae-soo felt that life was exhausting, as long as she imagined that tomorrow will be better, she could grit her teeth and keep going. But now, all she had left was complete confusion. She didn't know how far Kang Min-cheol had already gone. Just as she was silently crying to herself in her heart, a motorcycle stopped in front of the convenience store. Looking at Hae-soo, who appeared more haggard than before, Tae-ha, while feeling angry, also felt so heartbroken he was almost going mad. Whenever Hae-soo slightly tried to break free from her shackles, that evil ghost would entangle her again, tearing her to pieces. He didn't know how badly he had hurt you today, nor did he know what he himself should do to relieve even a bit of your grievance. Being stared at by a strange, unfamiliar boy, Hae-soo felt a little annoyed. She didn't know why this person kept staring at her, but this person was really tall, a bit like that someone. Just as she was thinking this, the helmeted man suddenly raised his phone. On the screen were a few words. "Can I call you Nuna?" Hae-soo's taut nerves instantly relaxed. "Honestly, do you want to get scolded again?" Tae-ha didn't say anything, just laughed softly to the side. "Why are you wearing a helmet? I just got off work and came over. Are you doing part-time food delivery?" Tae-ha thought about it and felt that description fit quite well. Yeah, more or less. Seeing the bandage on his face, Hae-soo couldn't help but worry. "Then be careful. That kind of job makes it easy to get hurt. Are you worried about me?" Hae-soo deliberately put on a stern face and glared at him. "What's there about you that's worth worrying about? Go stand over there and raise your hands. That's the punishment for talking nonsense." She hadn't expected that she was just saying it casually, yet Tae-ha accepted it gladly, as happy as if he had received some kind of reward. Seeing how delighted he looked, Hae-soo couldn't be bothered to care about him anymore. Not long after, he said he was a little hungry. Hae-soo immediately got angry. "Tell him to stop letting kids work at that place, not even feeding them. What a scumbag boss." These words couldn't help but make Tae-ha think of the fact that his so-called work just now wasn't delivering food at all. But from beginning to end, watching the entire process of Kang Min-cheol cheating, the waiting was agonizing, but he knew that victory was not far away. He walked behind Hae-soo, leaned down slightly, and said seriously into her ear, "I have to persist, because it's something very, very important." Hae-soo, however, mistakenly thought that it was because of family reasons that he really couldn't resign casually. So that he wouldn't continue going hungry, she planned to pay out of her own pocket to buy him a cup of instant noodles. Unexpectedly, Tae-ha shook his head. "I appreciate your kindness, but I'm not a useless person who can't support himself. However, help me pick the tastiest one." As he spoke, he rested one hand on the shelf. Seeing the tattoo on his wrist, Hae-soo froze for a moment, then immediately showed a concerned expression. "What's that on your hand?" Tae-ha's heart skipped a beat. He thought Hae-soo disliked tattoos. Things like that looked too much like a delinquent. So he quickly pulled down his sleeve to cover it and promised seriously, "If you don't like it, I'll get it removed." However, what Hae-soo noticed was the old scar beneath the tattoo. She grabbed his hand and lifted it, looking into his eyes as she asked, "Why is there a scar like this?" As soon as the words fell, the heavy worry she had been holding suddenly turned into light. Although she tried hard to pretend to be calm, Tae-ha still heard the slight tremor at the end of her voice and also saw that expression of hers, as if she were about to cry for him. His heartbeat instantly went out of control. In order to see that expression on her face a little longer, one that was because of him, he deliberately teased her. "It was just an accident, not what you're thinking, don't worry." But Hae-soo still heard the lie within it. This scar had been there for a long time. She decided it would be better to ask him about it later. At this time, Tae-ha picked up a cup of instant noodles. "Then I'll eat this one." Ate this one. Hae-soo swapped it with another from his hand. "Why? This one's more expensive, so it tastes better." Okay. Watching Tae-ha eat quietly, Hae-soo felt a bit unsettled inside, yet she didn't resist this sense of disorder. Perhaps it was because his presence allowed her to temporarily forget the shadow brought by Kang Min-cheol. Just as Tae-ha was silently soothing her uneasy heart, on the other side, Kang Min-cheol was lying together with Ari. Hearing the girl beside him say she wanted to marry him, Kang Min-cheol choked a little. "You're still young. Why are you in such a hurry to get married? At the best age, you should properly enjoy your youth." Ari, who had originally been dissatisfied with his reaction, was instantly moved to tears by his mature way of thinking. Feeling the woman hug him tightly, Kang Min-cheol only felt somewhat speechless. He had originally just wanted to have some casual fun, but he hadn't expected Ari to take it seriously. But at such a young age, she already had a car and a house. Her family probably wasn't short on money. Even her hair was so smooth. Compared to Hae-soo, who didn't even have any fragrance, the scent of her perfume was simply addictive. Suddenly, Ari asked him, "Appa, have you never thought about getting married?" Kang Min-cheol was silent for a moment. "Yeah, I guess I have." "Oh?" Then have you imagined what life after marriage would be like? These words made Kang Min-chul briefly sink into memories. When he was young, he had also once longed for a life where, in an apartment that wasn't too old, he and Na Hai-soo would raise a lovely child together. But reality was, Na Hai-soo's body was too weak, and it was difficult for her to get pregnant. Although he had also felt dissatisfied, deep down he knew better than anyone that even if the problem wasn't with her, given their current situation, raising a child was, in itself, a luxury. On the other side, Byum Tae-ha was standing on the rooftop, letting the cold wind pass through his fingers. He thought of everything that had just happened, extended his left hand, and asked the people beside him, "What do you think this looks like?" Everyone gave the same answer. It was just a tattoo. Byum Tae-ha smiled. When everyone only saw that patch of tattoo, only Hae-soo saw beneath the black lettering that faded scar. Because of this, his heart grew increasingly restless. The original plan was to wait calmly like an adult, without making a sound, until his relationship with Hae-soo reached its end. But now he realized that he was in so much pain he was almost going insane, and all of that pain came from his love for her. He discovered that he could no longer restrain that impulse. He had to do something. At the same time, on her way home from work, Hae-soo happened to run into a restaurant owner causing a disturbance. What puzzled her was that, the moment that man saw her, he ran off in fear, like a mouse seeing a cat. Although she felt confused, she didn't think too much of it. When she got home, Kang Min-chul had already fallen asleep in exhaustion. She was just about to lie down when she noticed the incoming call notification on his phone screen. When she saw the two words, Ari, on the screen, Hae-soo hesitated for a long time. A wave of irritation boiled up in her heart, urging her to press the answer button and question the woman on the other end. Why she was calling so late and what exactly it was about? Were she and Min-kyul really just colleagues? There were too many questions, her emotions too chaotic, yet she still couldn't bring herself to reach out her hand. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to bear the answer. She hesitated, and the call automatically disconnected. Hae-soo forced herself to calm down. This must just be a work-related call, but even comforting herself this way, she still couldn't feel at ease. The next day, while working at the flower shop, Hwa Jung showed her wedding photos taken by a relative, while fantasizing about the day she herself could wear a wedding dress. She suddenly remembered that Hae-soo was already a married woman and asked curiously, "Uni, is a wedding ceremony very busy? What kind of wedding dress did you choose back then?" A string of questions left Hae-soo momentarily speechless. In her memory, her wedding with Kang Min-kyul was just a quick trip to the civil office to get a stamp, and it ended hastily. Because he couldn't give her any kind of ceremony, Kang Min-chul had once felt deeply guilty and promised her, "When things get better at home, I'll definitely give you a wedding. Let you wear a beautiful wedding dress and a ring with an enormous diamond, and then we'll go to Hawaii for our honeymoon." Hae-soo has never proactively made any requests. But what girl doesn't look forward to a wedding of her own? She had always carefully kept that promise in her heart. Even though that day never came, and they were no longer even husband and wife in the eyes of the law, to Hae-soo, none of that mattered. As long as the feelings between the two of them hadn't changed, even without diamonds, he would still sparkle in her eyes every day. On the other side, Byum Tae-ha was so troubled he was about to lose his mind. He had clearly thought that his relationship with Hae-soo had taken a step forward, yet no matter how much he coaxed or pleaded, Hae-soo still didn't reply to his messages, which left him extremely frustrated. If he had known it would turn out like this, he should have taken a few more punches that day. At that moment, Jae beside him handed over a lighter, wanting to light the cigarette in his mouth for him. Looking at the other man's fawning smile, Byum Tae-ha wordlessly took the thing out of his mouth, revealing a lollipop. No need to light it. Jae was instantly embarrassed, never expecting that their first meeting would result in such an awkward joke. But the next second, Byum Tae-ha suddenly asked him, "Have you ever buried someone?" Lee Jae froze, completely failing to understand. He didn't know that at this moment Byum Tae-ha had already developed murderous intent. In a calm tone, he said, "Before long, there might really be something that needs burying." Seeing that he didn't seem to be joking, Lee Jae felt a chill run down his back, cold sweat breaking out. Although his dream was to become the kind of gang boss seen in movies, when it came to something as serious as burying people, he didn't know if he could actually bring himself to do it. That said, this man was still so young, yet he made people feel cold inside, just like the chairman. At the same time, busy at the restaurant, Hae-soo suddenly heard a female customer confiding in her best friend about her husband's affair. The husband in the girl's words slowly overlapped with Kang Min-chul's image. The increasingly frequent overtime, his growing attention to his appearance, and that indescribable sense of dissonance, the constantly accumulating anxiety and fear turned into a tangible pain that pressed tightly against her chest, making even breathing difficult. The dual discomfort of body and mind made it impossible for her to focus on her work any longer. Always conscientious and never taking leave, she asked her boss for permission to leave early for the first time. Seeing that her face was so pale it had no color at all, the boss originally wanted to personally take her to the hospital, but just then that low voice sounded again in her mind. "You can do whatever you want." Those words gave her strength. That person who normally wouldn't even spend $10 extra carelessly actually went on her own to Kang Min-cheol's company building. The conversation she had just overheard between customers seemed to whisper to her, "As long as there's an affair, there will definitely be cracks." If she didn't want to be treated like a fool, she had to find solid evidence. But Hae-soo hadn't come here for evidence. She only wanted to prove one thing, to prove that the heart curled up in pain was thinking too much. She just wanted to tell herself Kang Min-cheol would absolutely not be that kind of person. Even if nightmares woke her every night, even if their relationship was no longer what it once was, even if the passion of those early years had already faded, the love in her heart had never diminished. Seeing a stranger standing at the company entrance, a supervisor returning from the restroom stepped forward to remind her that this area was not open to the public. Hae-soo hesitated for a long time before trembling as she spoke her reason. She was a relative of Kang Min-cheol and wanted to confirm whether he was working overtime here. Even at this point, she didn't want to cause trouble for Kang Min-cheol by using the identity of wife. Hearing this, the supervisor looked surprised, but Kang Min-cheol didn't report that he'd be working overtime tonight. Hae-soo stood frozen in place, feeling a suffocating sensation surge up from her chest. Fortunately, the supervisor softened and still led her into the company. Hearing that someone was looking for Kang Min-cheol, Ari looked up, her face full of curiosity. At the same time, Kang Min-cheol, whose name had been called, was still somewhat confused. But the instant he saw Hae-soo, the anger of being defied rushed straight to his head. He instinctively grabbed Hae-soo's arm hard, turned back and said darkly to the supervisor, "We'll talk outside," then forcibly dragged her away. Hae-soo's arm hurt badly from being yanked, but the more she cried out in pain, the harder Kang Min-cheol gripped. After dragging her to a deserted corner, he slammed her against the wall and roared hoarsely, "What the hell are you doing? Damn it, this is humiliating. If nothing's wrong, why did you come to my company? Nah, Hae-soo, are you out of your mind?" Hae-soo tried to defend herself, but the moment she opened her mouth, she realized she was already trembling all over from fear. Fear completely robbed her of speech. Her lips quivered for a long time before she managed to squeeze out a single sentence. "I'm so scared." Seeing his frenzied state, her body stiffened instantly. A scene from several years ago replayed cruelly in her mind. Back then, Kang Min-cheol was drunk, smashing things wildly at home, and she could only curl up on the floor, unable to do anything at all. From that day on, whenever sounds became too piercing or emotions too intense, her body would automatically stiffen. The misfortunes accumulated over many years had long since taken root inside her. Even trembling had become an instinct. Listening to one roar after another, Hae-soo was both innocent and helpless. She wanted to open her mouth to explain, yet even parting her lips had become an extremely difficult task. In a daze, that low voice slowly rang by her ear again. "You can do whatever you want." At that moment, the fear in her eyes suddenly faded, and her trembling body gradually calmed down. She took a deep breath, gathered her courage, and raised her eyes to look at Kang Min-cheol. "There's makeup on your clothes." "I don't wear makeup, so it definitely isn't mine." "Tell me, whose makeup is it then?" Seeing Hae-soo questioning him with such determination on her face, Kang Min-cheol froze for a moment. He remembered that Hae-soo rarely got angry. The last time was 13 years ago. Thinking of this, the anger in his heart gradually died down, and he released the person he had pinned against the wall. Even so, his tone remained forceful and merciless. "You're afraid I'm messing around with other women, so you barged in here to make a scene? Hae-soo, do you have delusions of persecution?" Hae-soo had used up all her courage. Her body began to tremble slightly, and her hands subconsciously clenched in front of her chest. Clearly, the one in the wrong was Kang Min-cheol, yet every time, the one left speechless under questioning was always the inarticulate Hae-soo. Those who don't love can act recklessly. Those who do love are forever cautious. Knowing Hae-soo's temperament well, Kang Min-cheol deliberately put on an impatient, indifferent expression. "It must have gotten on me accidentally on the road." Just for this bit of bullshit, you're making such a fuss? Are you really sick? If you've got nothing to say, I'm going in. Don't come again. After saying that, he left only Hae-soo behind, helplessly leaning against the wall. Clearly, she had already gotten a safe answer, yet she couldn't feel happy at all. On the way home, Hae-soo was like an empty shell that had lost its soul, her eyes vacant as she kept bumping into passers-by. The man who got bumped into was just about to curse loudly, when the next second, a solid human wall slammed into him again. Rubbing his arm that felt close to dislocating, the man looked up in surprise, thinking he had run into a utility pole. Instead, he saw Baeom Taeha turning his head aside with a cold expression, warning him, "Watch where you're going next time." No one knew how long they walked. Snowflakes began drifting down from the sky. 100 steps. 20 steps. Baeom Taeha, following behind, drew closer and closer. Before he realized it, only 10 steps remained between him and Hae-soo. Baeom Taeha's gaze gradually darkened. At this distance, logically, you should have noticed me, but right now, your heart is completely occupied by another man. So even if there were only 3 steps between us, you still wouldn't notice me. His heart was torn open with a raw gash, clearly trying hard to hide it, slowly pretending nothing was wrong. Yet in truth, more than hiding it, what he hoped for was that his wicked thoughts would be discovered by her, and then be scolded harshly. For this pitiful bit of hope, he hovered around the one he loved every day, constantly sending her messages. Even though he himself was already covered in wounds, Na-hae-soo still only gazed at the back of a certain someone. He didn't know that by missing the changing of the seasons, missing the years of youth, he would also forever miss that first snow that belonged to the two of them. Ignored by the one he loved, Baeom Taeha could only send Hae-soo a line of cold yet gentle concern. Keep warm. The drizzling rain quickly turned into a torrential downpour. Hae-soo stopped in her tracks, and all the grievances and unease in her heart erupted at this very moment. The tears she had suppressed for 13 years completely burst forth. She squatted alone in the heavy rain, whispering all her grievances to the wind. Baeom Taeha, hiding in a corner and watching this scene, only felt his chest grow tight. He threw away his umbrella, closed his eyes, and let the icy rain pound mercilessly against his body. The person he loved was suffering right in front of him, yet because he had no status, he couldn't even step forward to comfort her. Baeom Taeha felt foolish, so foolish that he had believed that if he just waited a little longer, he could wait for the day Hae-soo and Kang Min-cheo's relationship fell apart. He secretly swore in his heart, this kind of behavior, only being able to watch Hae-soo's crying back from afar, today would be the last time. The next day at work, seeing Hae-soo's eyes swollen from crying, Hwa Jung was full of question marks. "Unni, what happened to your eyes? Did you eat ramen last night? Was it some kind of hellish devil ramen?" With only 10 minutes left before leaving the shop, she had originally planned to make up with Kang Min-cheo last night, but that man hadn't come home all night. Thinking that their wedding anniversary was in a few days, Hae-soo decided to take a day off, wanting to go out to eat with Kang Min-cheo and formally apologize to him. Just as she was worrying about how to arrange the schedule, a cup of coffee gently tapped her on the head. She had just turned her head when she heard Baeom Taeha's smiling voice. "Slacking off?" Hae-soo looked up at him, her face full of question marks. Baeom Taeha, however, reached out and poked her swollen, tearful eyes. Hae-soo cried out in pain, rubbing her eyes with a wronged expression. "How am I slacking off? We're not even open yet." Baeom Taeha continued teasing. "You haven't scolded me lately and you don't reply to my messages, so I had no choice but to come find you on my own. I even thought I'd get yelled at." Without realizing it, Hae-soo had already grown used to his presence. Only after hearing this did she suddenly come back to her senses. "So, you know you get scolded? Then do you want me to give you a bit more punishment?" "Forget it." Hae-soo looked away, then secretly glanced at him again, speaking shyly and embarrassed. "You don't actually have that kind of preference, do you?" Baeom Taeha put on a clueless face. "What kind?" Liking to be scolded, just like what you said earlier." At this, Baeom Taeha could no longer hold it in. He covered his eyes and laughed unrestrainedly. Hae-soo was both embarrassed and annoyed. "Stop laughing. I'm asking you seriously." I said stop laughing. For some reason, these words seemed to have magic. Baeom Taeha immediately stopped laughing. In fact, he didn't have any special fetishes. But if the person was Na-hae-soo, it seemed like anything would be fine. After the playful chaos, Baeom Taeha asked with an expectant face, "Then from now on, can I come pick you up without getting your permission?" "What? Do whatever you want." Hae-soo's tone was flat. Then she suddenly seemed to remember something and added, this Friday won't work. Why? That day is my wedding anniversary. BM Taiha still wore a smile at the corner of his lips, but his heart sank all at once. Wedding anniversary? Aren't you already divorced? He lightly imagined in his mind what kind of expression Haisu would show if he actually said those words out loud. But in the end, he couldn't bear it. He couldn't bear to push her to the point where even her dignity couldn't hold. So he changed the phrasing, offering a double-meaning reminder. If it were me, I'd definitely hate it if the person I like were in contact with someone else. I'd really hate it if it weren't me but someone else, picking you up, holding an umbrella for you, and things like that. Because I'd feel that those kinds of things should only be done by me. So I hope you won't do that with others. These words were both a way of making it clear to Haesu that he hated her relationship with Kang Min-cheol, and also a reminder to her that the person who held an umbrella for you that day was not the husband you spoke of, Na Haesu. After saying that, he asked again, "That person really is your husband?" Haesu shrank her neck slightly and defended herself. Colleagues and friends sharing an umbrella is normal. Anyway, just don't come that day. She wanted to use this sentence to refute Byum Taiha, and also to convince herself. Byum Taiha stared at her. "Na Haesu? Like a fool. Your man hides things from you and messes around with younger women. And you, such a kind person, are only worried about whether you might be shaken by me. That's why you're so flustered, right?" He seemed to suddenly think of something and said softly, "I won't contact you that day. Or rather, I just won't come pick you up at all this week. Enjoy yourself properly, spending a wonderful time with your husband." Watching Byum Taiha's departing back, Haesu's heart was full of doubt. She had absolutely no idea what kind of abyss she was about to face. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Ari got dressed and sat up from the bed, her mind flashing back to the conversation she had with her best friend the morning before yesterday. At the time, she had still been showing off. Kang Min-cheol is not only handsome, obviously 33 years old, yet he looks very young and his stamina is great. He can easily pick me up, pin me down, and flip me over. Still in the honeymoon phase, her eyes were full of infatuation, but her best friend looked puzzled. "According to what you're saying, don't you find it strange? Such an outstanding man, how is he still single at 33? Those words were like a tiny thorn, stabbing into Ari's heart. Not enough to tear her apart, but enough to leave her constantly uncomfortable. So, once again, she made a request. "I want to go take a look at your place, Appa." Kang Min-cheol immediately showed a troubled expression. "Why this again? Your place is so nice. Why do you insist on going to mine?" Yet in his mind, calculations raced ahead. With the income of a fresh graduate office worker, it would be absolutely impossible to afford such a large apartment now. Big area, right by the subway, convenient for commuting. This meant that Ari's family background was far more superior than he had imagined. Kang Min-cheol couldn't help but start fantasizing. If I live with a woman like this, wouldn't my life become much easier? Anyway, even if I abandon Na Haesu, she'll only stay where she is, guarding that beggar-like place, doing nothing but waiting for me to come home every day. That Na Haesu, who is clearly bad with words yet has always loved me deeply, but does she really understand love? She doesn't slack off, doesn't act cute, like a piece of wood, always stiff and rigid. No matter what I do, she's like an emotionless doll. Just thinking about it makes me angry. But for some reason, Haesu's disappointed face from last night suddenly surfaced in his mind. Kang Min-cheol curled his lips. Although he had lost his temper, his mood was inexplicably a little lighter. So it turns out that Na Haesu, who is always dull and taciturn, can also show that kind of painful expression because of me. Seeing that Kang Min-cheol was absent-minded, Ari felt a bit angry, but he directly pulled her into his arms. Somehow, a pathological sense of pleasure quietly began to grow in his heart. An affair must not be discovered. But as long as he thought about how, once exposed, Na Haesu would be completely devastated because of it, a twisted delight welled up inside him. In the end, he agreed to Ari's request. "I really can't do anything about you. I don't have parents, didn't go to college, I'm just a nobody with nothing. The place you saw that day was a relative's home where I'm staying temporarily. If you see what it's really like, you'll definitely run away." But unexpectedly, Ari instead looked full of sympathy. "No matter what kind of person you are, Appa, I don't mind." Kang Min-cheol froze for a moment, then slowly nodded, agreeing to take her back. Time came to the wedding anniversary. Watching Kang Min-cheol climb out of bed, Haesu, who had taken leave in advance, cautiously asked, "Do you have time tonight?" Kang Min-cheol had long forgotten the significance of the day and just casually said, "No idea. Maybe I'll have to work overtime." Hae-soo felt a little disappointed and decided to ask again later. But even so, she still carried hope and properly completed a full day's work. When the flower shop closed, she took out her phone full of anticipation, only to see a reply that made her feel cold to the bone in an instant. Even so, she still pretended to be indifferent as she replied. She also had to work late tonight, telling him to focus on work and not worry. She felt like a fool, clearly knowing that living without expectations is the best choice. Yet she could never stop herself from hoping that person would remember today was a special day. After being completely disappointed, Hae-soo withdrew her leave and decided to continue her part-time job at the restaurant that evening. All of this was seen by Lee Jae-yi. Upon learning that Hae-soo would be working the night shift, that beast Kang Min-cheol took the opportunity to secretly bring Ari home. Perhaps feeling that their relationship had taken another step forward, Ari's face faintly showed shyness. She felt that this was what an adult romance should be like. Kang Min-cheol reminded her, "The heating at home isn't very good, it might be a bit cold." Ari instead tightened her grip on his hand. "It's okay, as long as you hold me. Appa's hands are very warm, I like them a lot." Seeing this scene, the last bit of humanity in Kang Min-cheol's heart gradually collapsed. "There is a road to heaven you refuse to take, and no gate to hell yet you barge in yourself. Since even such a dilapidated ice-cold cage has a woman willing to walk into it, then Na Hae-soo, who for more than 10 years has endured poverty and cold together, doesn't seem worth pitying anymore." In the corner, Baeum Tae-ha silently observed everything. Until the two entered the room, he immediately dialed Lee Jae-yi's number. "I need a change of clothes, as fast as possible. I'm in a hurry right now." After waiting so long, the final step of the plan had finally arrived, and the urgency in his eyes could no longer be concealed. Meanwhile, Ari looked around this old yet spotlessly clean room, showing a surprised expression. As a woman, she knew very well how much effort it takes to clean a place like this so thoroughly. "Appa, you're really amazing." Kang Min-cheol felt a little guilty. Clearly, it was all taken care of by Na Hae-soo alone. Yet hearing this praise still inexplicably lifted his mood. Because there was no heating, Ari soon began to shiver from the cold. Kang Min-cheol hurriedly led her into the bedroom. "A kid like you would catch a cold after staying in a place like this for a day. Next time, let's just go to your place." Ari happily shook her head. "Now, didn't I say it already? As long as Appa holds me tight, it's enough. You're so warm, what do I need heating for?" Hearing this, he suddenly thought of how the temperature had dropped sharply recently and how Hae-soo would shiver all over every night when she slept. At first, he had also thought about reaching out to pull that thin body over to keep warm, but just as his hand lifted, it dropped coldly again. Forget it, she'll sleep just fine on her own. At this moment, the person in his thoughts was Na Hae-soo, but the one in his arms was another woman. Doing this kind of thing in the small territory that belonged to Na Hae-soo made him feel extremely filthy, yet faintly, crazily excited. He had already grown used to seeing Hae-soo's back as she slept facing away from him. That silhouette was like a wound carved into the cracks of his bones, dragging him into degeneration again and again. The other side. Baeum Tae-ha changed into the clothes he had prepared long ago and rushed to the convenience store. The goal was simple: clear out all the heat packs. Looking at the entire basket stuffed full of heat packs, the female clerk opened her mouth in shock. She thought he was going to go mountain climbing in winter. No one knew he just wanted his body temperature to rise to an absurd level as quickly as possible. Not long after, co-workers from the restaurant were taking a break and smoking at the entrance. With a face burning red, Baeum Tae-ha walked up and said, "Sorry to bother you, could you help me call Na Hae-soo out?" Hearing that someone had come to look for her so late, a hint of red flashed through Hae-soo's eyes. Could it be Minkelo? She was completely confused, yet suddenly felt a bit excited. Did he say he forgot our anniversary because he wanted to surprise me? That flutter made her heart burn with warmth. She hurried out of the shop, impatiently calling out that name. Outside the door, there was no one. She froze in place. The next second, warmth suddenly pressed against her back as Baeum Tae-ha hugged her from behind, calling hoarsely into her ear again and again. "Nuna." His scorching breath brushed her ear, and Hae-soo shrank back with a flushed face. "I already told you, don't call me Nuna. You kid, what if someone hears? If you keep this up, I really am going to scold you." Seeing the tips of her ears turn completely red, Baeum Tae-ha chuckled softly. "Got it." Only then did Hae-soo realize something was wrong. She reached out to touch him and asked anxiously, "Where do you feel uncomfortable? Come here, let me take a look." Hearing the command, Baeum Tae-ha obediently leaned his face over, her palm pressed against that shockingly hot face, like touching a ball of fire, and Jesu's expression slowly turned tender with concern. Beom Taiha apologized in a low, weak voice. I'm sorry. We agreed not to contact each other this week, but I think I got sick. Where do you feel uncomfortable? Tell me clearly. I'm not too sure. It seems like I have a fever. You're burning up like this, and you still came to find me? At a time like this, you should go straight home, take medicine, and rest. Beom Taiha lowered his eyes, pretending to be dejected. Can't go home. He didn't say more, but the dark circles around his eyes clearly gave everything away. Jesu suddenly remembered that he had said his situation was very bad. Maybe even if he went back to that so-called home, he wouldn't be able to rest. Maybe the wounds she had seen that day were also left by people at home. Thinking this, Jesu immediately stood up and told him to wait a moment. But Beom Taiha panicked at once and reflexively grabbed her hand. I'm just going to ask the boss for leave, Jesus said helplessly. It's not like I'm going to abandon you. Hearing this, he finally felt at ease. Then I'll wait for you. Soon, the two walked one after the other on the way home. Passing through familiar streets, Jesu looked at the boy beside her and calculated in her mind. Kang Minchel would be back very late tonight. First let Beom Taiha take some medicine, then lie down in the room for a while and leave after he feels better. It's just that he's too tall, so this small room would feel a bit cramped for him. But when you're not feeling well, curling up to sleep for a bit should be fine, right? Sensing her gaze, Beom Taiha turned his head and smiled. What good thing did you do, smiling to yourself like that? Nothing, Beom Taiha replied. I'm just happy I haven't seen you in a long time. Jesu's tone softened. You're already grown up and still getting sick. That makes you happy? Then come find me anytime like before. No need to deliberately stay away. A kid I see every day suddenly disappearing, I'd also feel a little lonely. As if recalling what was about to happen next, Beom Taiha's gaze became firm. I understand. From now on, I'll come see you every day. Looking at him, who always carried a smile, Jesu felt a bit dazed. She knew that she could no longer avoid this innocent smile, completely free of malice. While talking, the two had already arrived at the door. Just as she reached out to open it, Jesu suddenly stopped. At first, she was only puzzled. Why was the light at home on? The next second, indecently intimate sounds between a man and a woman came from inside. Her outstretched hand suddenly felt heavy, as if filled with lead. The door was right in front of her, yet she couldn't push it open. She had no courage to verify the truth behind the door. Until the woman inside called out the name Kang Minchel, the last shred of hope in her heart shattered with a roar. Scenes from the past flashed through her mind one by one. From campus to marriage, from youth to middle age, over 13 years, she had given all her trust to this person. But now, the love in her heart was torn to pieces. Along with the 13 years of accumulated memories and the youth they had spent together, all of it was trampled into ashes. About 15 minutes later, Jesu was still standing there, motionless. Looking at her stiff back, Beom Taiha slowly moved closer, leaned down to her ear and whispered in an unprecedentedly cold voice. Don't run, don't avoid it. Listen carefully, and then face the end of your love. This unfamiliar voice yanked Jesu violently back to reality from her daze. That slow tone sounded like a verdict. Long ago, at some moment he refused to acknowledge, this love had already reached its end. This marriage had never shone brightly like the past she clung to. Long ago, without anyone noticing, it had quietly faded. Even so, she still found it hard to let go. She shook off Beom Taiha's hand gripping her shoulder, but she did not turn and run away. She wanted to seek justice for the self who had wagered half her life on this relationship. Seeing her back, more resolute than usual, Beom Taiha froze for a moment, then couldn't help laughing. I thought you would only run away. I didn't expect you'd have a day when you're this decisive. The other side. Jesu strode toward the bedroom. While the two were still immersed in intimacy, the bedroom door was shoved open violently. Seeing Jesu burst in with a face full of rage, Kang Minchel's mind went blank. He never imagined that Jesu would come back so early. Ari beside him looked confused. Is this the relative Appa mentioned? The word relative was like a heavy hammer smashing into Jesu's already battered heart. She stared at her first love, on whom she had gambled 13 years of youth, her voice trembling. Tell me, Kang Minchel. Are we just family? Kang Minchel didn't answer, only complained impatiently. Why did you come back so early? Seeing him about to get up and leave, Jesu immediately rushed over, grabbed his collar tightly, and screamed hysterically. Where are you going? Explain it to me clearly. Are we just people who know each other? Am I just your family? Kang Minchel, you actually tell the woman you lived with for 13 years that she's just family? Are you even human? Hearing this, Ari seemed to understand something, and her expression instantly changed. She showed a look of disgust and turned to leave. Kang Min-kail panicked and hurried after her to explain. There's really nothing special between me and her. We were married, but we've been divorced for a long time. I swear, she's not even family now, just a stranger. These words struck Haesu like a bolt of lightning, turning her whole body pale. Always gentle and never one to argue, she lost control in anger for the first time, rushing forward to grab King Minchel by the hair. What the hell? Haesu, are you crazy? Let go of me. I won't. She pulled at his hair while crying so hard she could barely speak. How can you treat me like this? How can you say, I'm a stranger? But frail as she was no match for him. After a bout of struggling, Kang Minchale suddenly flung her away. With a bang, her back crashed into the dining table, knocking over a glass. Water spilled all over her, icy to the bone. Completely enraged, Kang Minchale tore off his disguise and roared viciously. I've long been sick of this miserable life, so I went to see other women. She's younger than you, gentler than you, richer than you. We slept together a few times, so what? Looking at Haesu's desperate face, a trace of cruel pleasure flashed in his eyes. Then he added coldly, twisting the knife, even if I cheated, what can you do about it? Break it up? If you've got the guts, then try it. After saying that, he ran out without looking back to chase after Ari, leaving Haesu alone, slumped on the floor. The shattered glass slowly rolled to her feet. She looked up and only saw the rose that had fallen to the ground. She had thought it would herald a beautiful beginning, but instead, it only announced a cruel ending. The tears could no longer be stopped, and she pressed her trembling hand against the spot on her chest that felt like it was about to suffocate. Tear after tear rolled down, her sobs growing louder and louder. The other side, Kang Minchale was still fabricating lies, saying it was all Haesu clinging to him, and that his true feelings were for Ari. Hearing this, BM Taiha's eyes turned as cold as ice. As expected, I should have just killed him. He stared at this man who had made Haesu wither bit by bit, took a deep breath, and forced that impulsive thought back down. Letting him off so easily, how could that be possible? He would use the slowest, deepest, most cruel way to return all the pain of these years, bit by bit. Back inside the room, looking at the utterly shattered Haesu, he had originally thought he would be happy. After all, it was only today that he had finally discarded that man. But when he truly saw her collapse in pieces, Baeom Taiha realized that the one hurting to the point of suffocation was his own heart. He had longed day and night for them to fall apart. Yet when that person was truly smashed beyond repair, it felt as if someone had punched his chest hard, leaving it bruised and purple. Even if he didn't want to hear it, he couldn't stop himself from hearing Haesu's tearing sobs echoing in his ears. He returned to the rental room with heavy yet resolute steps and silently swore in his heart, "As long as I can soothe your wounded heart, I'll unconditionally do everything you say. Everything you want, I'll find a way to give you. Everything you want to do, I'll shoulder it together with you. Anywhere you want to go, even to the ends of the earth, I'll take you there. If you ask me to kill him, I won't hesitate either. But you probably wouldn't do that. Even after he's tormented you to this point, you still wouldn't curse him. Just like you only look at Kang Min-kyul and I can only ever look at you. But you have no demands of me at all, and that leaves me more at a loss than hatred ever could." His love for Na Haesu was like a feeling bound hand and foot, choked at the neck, unable to move. No one knew how long the silence lasted, before he gently patted Haesu's back and softly comforted her. "Stop crying. If you keep crying, your eyes will swell shut and your throat will go hoarse. You still have so much you're holding on to. If you keep tormenting yourself like this, your body won't be able to take it." Halfway through his words, Haesu's body suddenly tilted. She went limp and fell to the side, finally losing consciousness and collapsing straight into Baeom Taiha's arms.